Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to Toe Tags Metal Reviews, and today we're going to be checking out the new release from Soreption, Kreator, Motionless in White, and Satyricon. So that's 4 new releases today. There's a lot on our plate, and let's just dive right in. What was the first album of these 4 that you listened to today?
Satyricon.
Satyricon.
Started off with Satyricon and Munch, which I thought was a very weird name for an album, and I wondered why it was called that. So I went on Spotify and I said, let's download this album. And I see 1 track, and I went, wait a second, is this a single or what is this? Oh, it's 56 minutes long. Their album is 1 track, and it's 56 minutes long. And it's an ambient album. As far as I can tell, I didn't listen to the entire thing because I got pretty bored of it. I listened to about 15 minutes and went, you know what, meh, skip. Just like kind of scrubbing through it. Didn't hear any vocals at all instrumental. But it's not like, it sounds like a movie score or some type of that kind of thing. I looked up who Munch might be, and I think it's Charles Munch, who's a French composer. I don't think it's a collaboration because this guy's dead, but I think that they used his music as an inspiration. He was a French composer and a violinist, and you do hear a lot of violin in here, so I think that's where the Munch comes from. Satyricon's an odd band, man. They started out pretty heavy, like Norwegian black metal, and they kind of their styles molded and become different things over the years, like more heavy metal infused, less black, more heavy, and now this all of a sudden. So at the end of the day, I wasn't too impressed by it. It was just I won't listen to it again. It's not really my cup of tea, which is not really fair for me to judge something like this because that's not something I normally listen to. So I'm a little disappointed that's all it was, but maybe other people will enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing I would definitely put on, like, to go to sleep to. Because that's just, that's what it is. It's ambient, there's, whatever, a lot of nice sounds. It's very pretty sounding, and there's, like, at, like, the 30-minute mark, there's, like, 2 minutes of a band playing. So if you're really looking for some black metal, you gotta go through the gauntlet first, I guess.
Yeah.
But, I can't really recommend this for people who like metal, because it's not really a metal album.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't really fit the bill.
I mean, it's pretty. That's true.
Yeah.
But as for myself, I started my day today with Soreption. The album's called Jord. And we've actually checked this band out before on the channel. This was a few years ago. We checked out an album, I believe it was called Monument to the End.
I don't remember. I remember checking the album out, but I just don't know what it was called.
And from what I recall, my memory is quite fuzzy, but I want to say it was an album that I kind of felt kind of like, it's like kind of whatever, a little bit boring, kind of. And then this album kind of shattered how I felt with the last one, because I thought this was way better than what my memories tell me about the last one.
Yeah.
And if I were to, on basic terms, explain how this album sounds, it's like if you took Archspire and Born of Osiris and put them together. That's a really cool mix. You have this really, tight tech death, but then you have a lot of synth in there and a lot of melodic runs going on, and I actually like that mixture quite a bit. That's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I really like how the first track just instantly starts.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of songs that, kind of just get right into the action quick, but this is probably the fastest I've seen, because it's just instant. As soon as you hit play, we're going, and it's really fast,
Yeah. I actually listened to this album a couple times, and I did enjoy it quite a bit. Tiefness is right. My memory as well from the last album was that it was pretty meh. But this one, I was like, wow, this is actually pretty good. Like, it's very technical, but it's got those melodic elements, and really, it's groovy and melodic for a technical death album, which is really cool. But yeah, the first song, The Artificial North is the title. It's just out of the gate. It's just awesome, and the whole track is really cool. The bridge groove is dope. The rest of the songs, however, kind of all fall into the same pocket. They just... this is the flaw for the album, is that it all kind of sounds very samey. It's very technical, it's very, impressive, but it sounds very samey. The only other track that really stood out to me is track number 4, which is called Each Death More Hollow. And not even for any particular reason, it just sounded cooler for some reason. But overall, 8 tracks, 30 minutes, it's pretty short. But overall, it's a pretty decent album, I would say.
Yeah, I generally enjoyed it, and I might check it out some more, just because I feel like there might be some more in there to pick out. I think with all the melodic stuff into it, that adds a new layer onto, what there is to take away from it.
Yeah.
So, which one you want to talk about next? I mean, the one I listened to after Soreption was Kreator, so I guess we can take a look at that.
Let's talk about Kreator. Hey, Uber alles.
So, Kreator, we actually reacted to at least one of the songs from this album.
I think 2.
It was at least, like, that's why I say at least one, because I'm not 100% sure, but I know for sure there was one. Could have been a second one. It was pretty good, but it's pretty much exactly what you would expect from this band. You know?
Yeah.
It's old school thrash metal. And what I really like about it, though, what I really like about that is that this is old school thrash metal done with a modern day production. You know? Yeah. Because a lot of bands who either aren't around anymore or have changed their sound a ton just because they've gotten older, you want to hear like the old classic stuff, but you know, you want to hear it with like modern production quality. This is one of those bands that you don't have to worry about that because that's what they're doing.
Yeah. There's an interesting thing about thrash metal if you think about it. It's one of, maybe if not the only metal genre that hasn't really morphed into something else, right? Since the early 80s, there's bands today like Evil, for example, who's making thrash music that's very similar to stuff that was early 80s thrash, right? Whereas if you go like death metal of today, it doesn't sound exactly like the 80s death metal. It's different. It's evolved in certain ways.
Yeah.
So thrash music, I think, has been very consistent over the decades, and that's both a pro and a con. You always want new sounding things, but as Stevie Fish said, this is exactly what you would expect from a Kreator album. There's no surprises, but they do what they do very well. So I think the album's got great vocals, it's got great riffs, it's got great solos, and those are the things you want when you're listening to thrash. You know, the drums are on point, it's got that high energy. Some standout tracks, I don't know if you listen to standout tracks yet, but I'll just name a couple. The title track was really cool. Strongest of the Strong was cool because it's got really cool riffs, but the pace is slower, so that kind of stands out, especially being in the middle of the album. It's a pace breaker-upper. And track number 10, Pride Comes Before the Fall, I thought was really cool because it's also a softer song. It starts off with keyboard and clean vocals, and then gets heavy from there. So it's got that element of diversity of sound that we always like to talk about and praise on this channel. So it's got some cool stuff going for it, but at the end of the day, it's just more Kreator, which is not really a fault.
Yeah, I mean, I guess as for standout tracks, one I can mention, I actually kind of like Dying Planet, which is the last track on the album, mainly because it tries to be a big epic. Even though it's not like super long or anything, it is longer than other songs. It's like around 6.5 minutes or so. But I like that they had kind of this big kind of epic song as the end. Like, I really like that they have that kind of contour. So even though it sounds like, you know, what you'd expect from a thrash album, it does give itself some dimension that way.
All right, Motionless in White, scoring The End of the World. Thoughts?
It's interesting because my reference point for this kind of I guess subgenre of metal is Ice Nine Kills, because we checked out the Silver Scream 2 back when that came out, and we enjoyed it quite a bit.
2 Toe Tags.
Exactly, yeah, 100%. I think it was on both of our top 5s even.
Our top 5s.
So, you know, when I listened to this album, I was getting those kinds of vibes. I'm like, okay, this is the same, not like, oh, this is the same thing, but this is the same vein. This is the same kind of general stuff. Some could say emo metal. I don't even know if that's really even a proper genre. I guess
I don't either.
Genre is always really weird and hard to describe and define. But I did enjoy a lot of the grooves going on. It was, I feel like at some points I'm like, okay, this is kind of reminding me of Ice Nine Kills. Is it as creative though? Because that was one of the best parts of the Ice Nine Kills album. For the most part, no, but there's one song where it really did stick out to me as really creative, and I'm like, okay, this is what I like to see, and that song is Werewolf. I love how the song just overall sounds like a dark synthwave metal song. That is so cool, and you really don't hear something like that very often, but the fact that they referenced the melody of Somebody's Watching Me, in that near the end, as soon as I heard that, I'm like, whoa, shit, that was awesome. That was so creative. That was so clever. Like, I loved that. And I wish there was more smart little things like that in this album.
Yeah.
But I feel like Werewolf kind of just stands out as really the only song that is like that clever and does something like that sounds totally different. A lot of it kind of sounds similar to itself. And as the album went on near the end, I'm like, okay, it's kind of like similar, And I found the pacing to be a little bit weird, as it's kind of like it does some heavy stuff and then heavy and soft in the same songs. And I feel like, what is this album trying to be? You know, some of them are supposed to be barn burners, but they got like a really soft sounding chorus. So I'm like, okay, well, what is this song trying to accomplish here? If not trying
radio, maybe.
But then it's like some of them kind of are more dedicated to it, that kind of sound. So then why do these ones also sound like that? It's a bit confusing. There are a few features on this album as well. One I'll mention is on the very last track. It's featuring Mick Gordon. I believe he does instruments on it, which is cool. I like Mick Gordon. Great stuff, right? But I feel like listening to the song, I'm like, how much did Mick Gordon really add? I feel like it's the kind of song that this band could have just made on their own. I'm not really complaining because it's, you know, Mick Gordon stuff is great anyway. But I just kind of found it a little weird, you know?
Yeah, it didn't really stand out to me as anything different or special.
But I believe that was the title track.
Yeah,
that he was on. But
are you done? You said you were gonna mention any other mention. There was another feature. Brian Garrett from Knocked Loose was on track number 5, Slaughterhouse.
Yeah, that song. I did not like the lyrics of that song. As I was hearing it, I'm just like, man, this is really like simplistic lyrics here.
Yeah, that's a fault. Really simplistic lyrics. I didn't really pay too much attention to the lyrics, but Slaughterhouse was one of my highlight songs, to be honest. And it's because the breakdowns were really cool, and there was 2 of them that were both really good in this song. I want to touch on the Ice Nine Kills comparison a little bit. I feel like both these bands are trying to play for the exact same audience, but one of them is doing it way better than the other one. Now, I don't know who came first. I think Motionless and White's been around longer. At least I've heard of them years before I even heard of Ice Nine Kills, so I don't even know. But I feel like Ice Nine Kills, they're both playing to the same crowd, but Ice Nine Kills is just slapping the floor, mopping the floor with them in almost every way. Just the way they're incorporating the, as TV just said, emo metal elements or subgenre with this metalcore kind of thing, and the horror element, which Ice Nine Kills is less like their whole shtick. They're doing it way better. They're more creative. The lyrics are more creative. The presentation is more creative. But enough about that. Motionless in White is a band that, you know, we've checked out from time to time on the channel. We got a few reactions of them, and generally we think they're pretty good. They're okay. This album did not do a lot for me, and the biggest fault of this album is the choruses. A lot of these songs are pretty okay. The verses are not bad. They got some good riffs. They got, you know, some good melodies and stuff going for them, but the choruses ruin them for me because they just sound so whiny. Whiny might not even be the right word. I don't exactly know what to call it, but it's this kind of singing that a lot of bands in the early 2000s and going into mid 2000s started doing, and a lot of the, you know, the scene kids. Yeah. Like I was too old for the scene, but a lot of those kids were liking these bands that had a lot of those whiny kind of elements to it. I never understood that, and I'm a very open-minded metalhead. Like it's very rare for me to listen to metal and go, ooh, that's sour. I don't really like that, right? But that's one of those elements that I can never understand how that's appealing to anybody. And this album's chock full of that stuff, unfortunately. It doesn't ruin every song. Well, it does ruin every song in a way, but it doesn't ruin the entirety of every song, is what I was trying to say. So there's good stuff on the album, is what I'm getting at here. The album is not horrible. It's not intolerable. It's got a lot of stuff that I was like, yeah, this is pretty good. I can get behind this. And then the chorus happens. I'm like, oh, why does this have to be there? Why does it have to sound like that? Why couldn't they stick with that cool, enticing music they were just playing and stick with that through the chorus and not change it into this like wah 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 kind of thing? Mm-hmm. I don't describe it very well. I'm probably gonna get some flack for the way I'm talking about this, but I don't know, man. The choruses really were putting me off. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally fair. I feel like this kind of genre and subgenre and the whole scene kind of thing is a little bit of an acquired taste, you know? I don't feel like everyone can really latch onto it. Like, I don't think it's like an easy thing to just latch onto.
I think it's geared towards younger audiences too, to be honest. It's a teen angst type of, you know, it's trying to reach the teenage emotion kind of thing. Like, I think we're past that. So it's hard for us to really relate to the music and get behind it for that reason as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, after looking through all these 4 albums, I think the album that we're going to review next week is Hate Uber Alles by Kreator. And I'm looking forward to that. I mean, it is a pretty good album, and we'll see what we think after listening to it for an entire week. Anyway, guys, that's all we got for you today. Remember to like this video if you liked it. Comment, tell us in the comments below, what do you think of the albums that came out today? There's a ton that came out that we didn't even mention. True. So we'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Anyway, subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. I'm TV Fish.
And I'm Vile Self.
Keep the horns up.